Over the course of this academic year, you will be keeping a concise, permanent written record of your experimental work in a laboratory notebook. Maintaining a laboratory notebook is essential for anyone performing laboratory work. It's the standard and best way to document and organize work you've completed in order to enable its replication and validation. This is an example of the type of notebook you'll be using. The notebook has permanently bound pages that are pre-numbered by the manufacturer. Each permanently bound page has a removable duplicate so that you can make copies of all that you write on each page, both in and out of the lab. When writing in the notebook, don't forget to place the cardboard barrier under the yellow copy sheet to prevent making multiple copies on the other copy sheets below it. Remember to use a pen with waterproof ink, such as a ballpoint pen, and push down hard enough while writing to make a copy that's easily readable. You will keep the original page bound in the notebook, and you will submit copies of all pages at the end of each lab period so that your instructor will have a complete copy of your notebook. For many of you, maintaining a lab notebook will be a new task. You're responsible for maintaining it properly, so please carefully read the Keeping a Lab Notebook document posted on Blackboard so that you understand what you should be recording in your notebook and how you should be recording it. Please also understand that your entries in your lab notebook are not a formal report, and the copies you submit are not some sort of formal report sheets. Laboratory notes are informal yet detailed first-hand accounts of your laboratory work written as you perform it. Entries in a lab notebook are the primary resource used to compose formal reports, dissertations, and scientific publications. Treat your instructional lab notebook the same way you would if you were a scientific researcher writing in your research lab notebook, in which would be recorded a concise, faithful account of what you did, how you did it, and what happened when you did it. A research lab notebook is a vital primary resource researchers refer to when writing up the results for publication in scientific journals. To make this task a meaningful exercise for you, treat your lab notebook as a typical research lab notebook and record your results as if they were to be included in the experimental or materials and methods section of a manuscript submitted for publication. Examples of published experimental write-ups are included in the Keeping a Lab Notebook document posted on Blackboard. In short, entries for every experiment should be divided into 4 sections, with the first 3 sections being prepared before you come to the lab, and the last section being a concise account of what you did, how you did it, and what happened when you did it, all written while you work in the lab. See the Keeping a Lab Notebook document for full details. Please remember to keep the original pages, the pages on which you've written, bound in the notebook, and remove the yellow copy pages for submission to your instructor. After completing sections 1 through 3 in advance of the experiment while outside of the lab, remove the copy pages and be ready to submit them to your instructor upon arrival to the lab. If you used more than one page, you should collate and staple them before coming to the lab. Section 4, the section reserved for in-lab note-taking, should always start on a new page. and don't record anything in that section in advance of the experiment. When recording your work and related observations and results in Section 4 of your notebook while performing the experiments, please don't divide the page into procedure and observation columns as illustrated in your lab text. Instead, write a very concise narrative of what you did, how you did it, and what happened when you did it, as you would in a typical research notebook. You should not be spending a lot of your precious lab time writing in your notebook. If you make brief notes as you go along, you'll find that it won't take much of your time and you will get better if you try. Waiting until the end of the lab period to frantically copy the steps from the procedure into your notebook is a meaningless activity, a true waste of your time, and will afford a poor notebook grade. Before you leave the lab, collate and staple all Section 4 copy pages and then place them in the alphabetical by last name file folder that's located in the lab in which you work. Your notebook will be evaluated no more than 3 times over the course of the semester. You'll be given a series of questions on a lab notebook evaluation form directly related to the content of your lab notebook for a single lab period, answers to which you should have already recorded in either the pre-lab or in-lab sections of your notebook. Questions will be chosen from experiments 2 through 6, and you'll not be told in advance which experiments will be evaluated. Only correct answers that appear in your notebook entries for a specified experiment will receive credit, and you'll enter the answers on the form exactly as they appear in your notebook, also indicating where they appear on the notebook page. An example of a notebook evaluation form is shown here. Announcements will be made on Blackboard to alert you of newly posted evaluation forms, along with full instructions for completing them and the due date and procedure for their submission.